Who hasn't wanted to dance like this when their parents were out of the house, white shirt, white socks, slick floor, and Tom Cruise made Hollywood history. Released in 1983, Risky Business was not just a coming-of-age movie. It was suburban Chicago, Princeton, Porsche money temptation, all very 80s. And 43 years later, Tom Cruise is still here, still selling out theaters on his name alone, and he has just been given an honorary Oscar by Hollywood. But what about everyone else? One person was dragged down by clinical depression so badly his family could barely take it anymore. One person nearly died after being hit by a car. Today we are not just looking at how they aged. We are looking at how the cast that once made an entire generation obsessed lived after the lights of 1983 went out. And do not leave after each group, because I will be dropping some of the best behind-the-scenes secrets along the way. So how many people from the Goodson house that year do you still recognize? And are you patient enough to catch all the little details I leave along the way? Let's go. Number 1, Tom Cruise as Joel Goodson. Let's get to the man who turned a pair of white socks into a statement for the entire 80s. Tom Cruise was born in 1962 in Syracuse, New York. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was only 21 years old. This year, he is 64. In the movie, Cruise is Joel Goodson, a suburban Chicago kid with successful parents, the Princeton dream hanging right in front of him, and an empty house big enough for a young man to think that at last, his whole life finally belongs to him. Risky Business brought Cruise his first Golden Globe nomination. Then Top Gun: Rain Man, born on the 4th of July, Jerry Maguire Magnolia, and Mission Impossible 1 by 1 turned him into one of the last real movie stars left, the kind of star whose name on a poster is enough to get men into theaters. But Cruise's real life was not as spotless as the Goodson house. He once said his father was emotionally and physically abusive, calling him a bully and a coward. His mother left his father when Cruise was still young. Looking back, it feels strange on screen he played a son crushed by the expectations of a perfect family. In real life, he learned to toughen up inside a family that was anything but perfect. Then Cruise's fame got so big it started burning through his private life too. His 3 marriages to Mimi Rogers, Nicole Kidman, and Katie Holmes were all picked apart by the public. Scientology became a major divide in his image. After his divorce from Holmes in 2012, the story of Suri religion and fatherhood was dissected endlessly by the press. In a deposition in 2013, Cruise admitted that Holmes leaving to protect Suri from Scientology was one of the arguments raised, though he also strongly denied abandoning his daughter. In 2005, the interview with Matt Lauer on The Today Show made everything even hotter when Cruise argued fiercely about antidepressants and criticized Brooke Shields for using medication to treat postpartum depression. From that point on, Tom Cruise was no longer just the golden boy. He became a debate that has lasted 4 decades. And yet he did not step back. Cruise tightened his work, tightened his body, tightened his image, then threw himself into real action stunts, as if cinema was the last place where he could still control everything. In 2025, the Academy gave him an honorary Oscar. Say what you want. Hollywood has thrown everything at Tom Cruise fame, broken marriages, controversial religion, cold media coverage. But he is still standing there, still making movies, still selling tickets, still making the whole theater look up at the screen. I do not call that perfect. I call that endurance. Number 2, Rebecca De Mornay as Lana. Let's get to Rebecca De Mornay, the woman who, if you lived through the 80s, you did not just watch on screen, you went crazy for her. Rebecca De Mornay was born in 1959 in Santa Rosa, California. When Risky Business came out in 1983, she was 24 years old. This year, she is 67. In the movie, she plays Lana, the woman who walks into Joel Goodson's life like a warning in a silk dress. Risky Business was Rebecca's first major role. After the movie, she did not become a box office machine like Tom Cruise. She appeared in Runaway Train: The Trip to Bountiful Backdraft, and then became one of the most unforgettable thriller faces with The Hand That Rocks the Cradle in 1992. Later, she kept working steadily in film and television, from Wedding Crashers, Jessica Jones, Peter 5-8, St. Clair, to NCIS. Her private life is also tied tightly to this very movie. Rebecca and Tom Cruise dated for about 2.5 years after Risky Business. Many years later, she still said she was proud of Cruise and mentioned that they had started together with that movie. But the two of them went in very different directions. Tom understood what America wanted from a big star. Rebecca described herself more like a minor chord, smaller, darker, less mainstream. She was married to writer Bruce Wagner from 1986 to 1990. After that, she had 2 daughters with Patrick O'Neill, and the two of them stayed together for 7 years before splitting in 2002. Rebecca was not the kind of actor who turned her private life into a side stage. But she did not go through Hollywood without scratches either. In 2007, she was arrested in Beverly Hills for DUI. Her blood alcohol level was reported by the press as 0.09 higher than California's legal limit of 0.08. In 2008, a no-contest plea was entered on her behalf for 1 count of drunk driving. She received 3 years of probation, had to complete a 3-month DUI program, and pay a $350 fine plus other fees. But heavier than a DUI case is the way Hollywood treats women once they pass the age the industry wants to box them into. In 2025, Rebecca spoke bluntly about the double standard around age. She said she was once considered too old when she was only in her mid-30s to play the lover of a male actor in his mid-60s. Then there was the sting of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. That movie is still famous enough to be remade in 2025, but Rebecca said the fact that they remade it without her felt like a betrayal. Today, Rebecca De Mornay is still working, still showing up, still carrying that cool sharpness that makes people recognize her right away. She is no longer Lana from 1983, and honestly, she does not need to be Lana anymore. She was not born just to stay frozen in their memories. Before we leave Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay, I have to pull you back for just a little longer. Because with these two, the story is not only in the movie. Risky Business is where they met, acted together, and then actually stepped into each other's lives. And if you look back at how the movie found them, you will see that Hollywood sometimes feels like a very strange card game. The role of Joel Goodson was never guaranteed to belong to Tom Cruise at first. A lot of young faces from that time were considered or read for the role, from Kevin Bacon, Sean Penn, John Cusack, to Matthew Broderick. The team also looked at names like Tom Hanks, and Lana almost became someone else too. Michelle Pfeiffer was approached but turned it down because she was not comfortable with the way the movie touched on prostitution. Daryl Hannah also had a chance. But in the end, the movie needed this exact pair, a boy who still thought he understood life, and a woman who only had to look at him for you to know right away this kid still had a lot to learn. Then came the chemistry test at 6 in the morning. Rebecca had to get up at 2 in the morning to get ready. Tom flew back to Los Angeles and walked into the room, not exactly looking like the perfect gentleman who had just stepped out of a cologne ad. At first, the spark did not catch right away. Rebecca almost had to tell him directly that this was a chemistry test and they needed to create real chemistry. But the best detail is in the ending. Paul Brickman wanted a darker, more ambiguous ending. The studio wanted something brighter, easier to sell. Tom and Rebecca both did not want to change it because they understood Risky Business was not just a young person's little mischief. It had bitterness. It was about money, desire, ambition, and the price of freedom. And after all that seduction, the movie needed someone to walk in carrying the consequences. Joe Pantoliano as Guido. Number 3, Joe Pantoliano as Guido. Every good youth movie needs an adult to ruin the party. Here, that person is Joe Pantoliano. Joe Pantoliano was born in 1951 in Hoboken, New Jersey. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was 32 years old. This year, he is 75. In the movie, he plays Guido, the man who walks into Joel Goodson's life like the final bill for a weekend that was way too much fun. After Risky Business, Pantoliano became one of Hollywood's most reliable supporting faces. You might remember him from The Goonies, La Bamba, The Fugitive, Bound, The Matrix, Memento, Bad Boys, and especially The Sopranos, the role that won him an Emmy in 2003. Pantoliano grew up in an Italian-American family in New Jersey with a mother who worked as a seamstress and a bookie, and a father who worked as a foreman and hearse driver. He has said he lived with undiagnosed dyslexia, poverty, childhood trauma, and later clinical depression. That illness, according to him, nearly destroyed his life. He self-medicated with alcohol, women, risky behavior, and decisions that a sober man would not want to admit were his. At one point, his wife, Nancy Shepard, and his children could barely take him anymore. Pantoliano once said the happiest creatures when he came home were his dogs. It sounds sad, but I believe a lot of men understand that sentence more than they would want to admit. In 2007, he was diagnosed with clinical depression. He kept going through psychiatrists, a 12-step program, fast walking every day, and founded the organization No Kidding Me Too to fight the stigma around mental illness. Later, he also survived a car accident while walking his dog during COVID. Today, Joe Pantoliano is still working with more than 200 credits, still returning in Bad Boys Ride or Die, still remembered by multiple generations. Number 4, Curtis Armstrong is Miles Dalby. Curtis Armstrong was born in 1953 in Detroit, Michigan. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was 30 years old. This year, he is 73. In the movie, Miles is Joel's friend. Risky Business was Armstrong's first feature film after about 8 years on stage. Right after that, he walked straight into cult classic territory with the role of Dudley Booger Dawson in Revenge of the Nerds. Then came Better Off Dead moonlighting Ray Supernatural New Girl and the voice of Snot in American Dad. The price was that people called him Booger for the rest of his life. Armstrong once said that almost every day someone calls him by that name. He does not regret it because he owes Revenge of the Nerds a lot, but he has also admitted Booger is very far from who he really is. And then the legacy of that movie itself became uncomfortable to look back on. Some scenes that 80s audiences laughed at freely back then are now seen as very problematic, especially the hidden camera and sexual deception elements used as jokes. Armstrong did not have any major private life scandals. He married Elaine Aronson, had a daughter named Lily, and lived like a working actor with real staying power. He also co-created and hosted King of the Nerds, turning the label that once boxed him in into a part of pop culture. Number 5, Bronson Pinchot as Barry. Bronson Pinchot was born in 1959 in New York City. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was 24 years old. This year he is 67. In the movie, Barry is one of Joel's friends, a small piece of that suburban young guy world that still thinks everything is just fun and games. 1 year later, Pinchot blew up as Serge in Beverly Hills Cop. Only about 2 minutes on screen, but that was enough to make all of America notice him. Then from 1986 to 1993, he became Balki Bartokomous in Perfect Strangers, the role that brought him an Emmy nomination in 1987. But his life was not like a sitcom. Pinchot has said his father was horribly abusive. When his father got angry, the family had to run away and the police had to come intervene. He was also bullied at school because of his appearance and because his family was not well off. Some comic actors do not come out of joy. They come out of learning how to make other people laugh so they can have room to breathe. Even when he became famous, Pinchot still struggled with depression. He was too scared to go to therapy, and he stayed away from substance abuse because he was afraid of becoming like his father. The fame from Beverly Hills Cop also came too fast. He once said he was not ready and that some aggressive fans even threatened to kill him when he did not want to perform Serge again on command. Then came the financial fall. Pinchot poured money into historic houses in Pennsylvania and the show The Bronson Pinchot Project. The project aired from 2012 to 2013, but the costs spun out of control. Several houses went into foreclosure and were sold at auction. He himself said he had lost many houses and nearly lost everything. After that, he pulled himself back up. From 2022, after realizing he was not strong enough to help his 94-year-old mother, Pinchot changed his fitness, lost 60 pounds, and rebuilt his body. In 2024, he returned as Serge in Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. In 2025, he appeared in Netflix's The Residence. Barry was only a supporting role, but Bronson Pinchot in real life is a man who lived through abuse, depression, financial loss, and still found a way to make audiences smile. Number 6, Richard Masur as Bill Rutherford. Masur was born in 1948 in New York City. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was 35 years old. This year, he is 78. In the movie, he plays Bill Rutherford, the Princeton admissions representative, the man who shows up right when Joel Goodson is trying to sell adults a very clean version of himself. The role is not long, but it hits a very real nerve in 80s middle-class America. Good college, good future, good son, clean record. Masur was not new when he stepped into this movie. He had studied at the Yale School of Drama, made his Broadway debut, then appeared in All in the Family, Rhoda, One Day at a Time, MASH, and The Thing. After Risky Business, he kept working steadily in The Burning Bed, the role that earned him an Emmy nomination, then licensed to drive it, My Girl Picket Fences. The Practice Transparent Orange is the New Black. The Good Fight and Younger. Masur did not have some major private scandal for the tabloids to tear apart. His story is somewhere else. From 1995 to 1999, he served as president of the Screen Actors Guild. He pushed a plan to merge SAG with AFTRA, but the proposal was rejected by members in 1999, and then he lost to William Daniels in the race for the next term. That was not a scandal, but it was a very public professional fall inside his own acting community. He still kept going. Masur served on many committees, took part in contract negotiations, health insurance, pensions, and later was honored by SAG-AFTRA with the President's Award in 2018. Number 7, Nicholas Pryor as Mr. Goodson. Nicholas Pryor was the kind of actor whose name you might not get right, but you believed him the moment he stepped into the role of a father. He was born in 1935 in Baltimore, Maryland, with the birth name Nicholas David Probst. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was 48 years old. He died in 2024 at the age of 89. In the movie, Pryor plays Mr. Goodson, Joel's father. Pryor was not an actor who just stopped by Hollywood for a moment. He graduated from Yale, worked on stage, appeared on Broadway, then worked professionally from the late 1950s. His career ran through more than 170 projects, from soap operas, television feature films, to small roles late in life. Audiences saw him in Damien Omen, 2 Airplane, Risky Business, Less Than Zero, where he again played a father this time, Robert Downey Jr.'s father, then Beverly Hills, 90210 General Hospital, and Port Charles. By 2021, he was still appearing in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Halloween Kills. Number 8, Janet Carroll as Mrs. Goodson. In Risky Business, Janet Carroll only appears as Joel's mother. In real life, she was a stage, jazz, and television artist who kept working until illness forced her to stop. Janet Carroll's birth name was Janet Thies, and she was born in 1940 in Chicago, Illinois. When Risky Business came out in 1983, she was 43 years old. She died in 2012 at the age of 71. In the movie, she plays Mrs. Goodson, Joel Goodson's mother. After Risky Business, Carroll kept working steadily in film and television. She appeared in Family Business with Sean Connery and Matthew Broderick, Memories of Me with Billy Crystal, Forces of Nature, and Enough. On television, audiences saw her in Murphy Brown as Doris Dial Melrose Place as Marion Shaw Kimberly's mother, and Married with Children as Gary Al Bundy's boss. But remembering her only as Tom Cruise's mother would be way too little. Carroll had a very deep stage background. She had been performing professionally since the late 60s, appearing in musicals like Mame Gypsy, Hello Dolly Guys, and Doll's My Fair Lady Funny Girl, and The Sound of Music. She worked for many seasons at Kansas City Starlight Theater, won a Dramalog Critics Award for playing Clytemnestra in Elektra, then went to Broadway in 2005 with Little Women, playing Aunt March and Mrs. Kirk. She was also active in jazz, served as artistic director for a jazz series at Simi Valley Cultural Center, and toured with the Beverly Hills Unlisted Jazz Band. Carroll did not have any major public scandal. Her final chapter was illness. She was reported to have died on May 22, 2012 in New York after a long illness. Carroll had been diagnosed with liver and colon cancer in 2008, had a period of remission. Then in 2011 was diagnosed with brain cancer and had to temporarily stop working. Before we leave this core supporting group, I want to pull you back behind the scenes for a moment. Because after all these heavy, real-life stories, we should also remember that Risky Business was made by a group of young actors living through a very strange Hollywood summer in the 80s. And a few things from behind the camera still sound pretty fun now. The funniest thing is back then, Tom Cruise was not yet Tom Cruise in the way we understand it now. Curtis Armstrong heard his name and even wrote it as Tom Cruise because he thought nobody really had the last name Cruise. Bronson Pinchot also thought that name sounded like a joke. More than 40 years later, that last name became one of the strongest ticket-selling names in Hollywood history. Tom also had a slightly odd habit on set. He called Curtis Armstrong Miles and called Bronson Pinchot Barry. Curtis did not know whether that was method acting or just Tom not having had time to remember everyone's names yet. But that detail feels very Tom Cruise, right? Even when he was very young, he already had the kind of focus that made other people both admire him and feel a little confused. Then there was the Purple Hyatt Hotel, A group of young actors was kept there for weeks. Some remember it as about 11 weeks. Some weeks they did not shoot anything, but they still had to stay there, even avoiding the sun, so their skin tone would not change from the previous scene. It sounds funny, but that really was the old way of making movies. You did not just act in a movie, you got trapped inside an entire summer of it. To make Joel's group of friends look like a real group of friends, the director also took them to a suburban Chicago shopping mall. Tom Curtis, Bronson, Kevin Anderson, and Raphael Sbarge wandered around like guys about to go to college, record store hamburgers walking the mall. I love this detail because it is so 80s. Back then, when you wanted to understand American youth, just put them in a mall and let them reveal themselves. And finally, there is a very Bronson Pinchot moment. In the scene where Barry opens the door for the girls coming in, he only had to react. After doing it, he wanted to shoot it again, probably because he thought he could do better. But production said there was no need. The first reaction was exactly what they wanted. After Joel's group of friends, it is time to step to the other side of the story, Lana's world. Shara Denise as Vicky. Number 9, Shara Denise as Vicky. Shara Denise does not have a big role in Risky Business, but her private life is tied to one of the most famous family disputes surrounding an American television icon. Shara Denise was born in 1949 in Hartsdale, New York. This year she is 77. In Risky Business, she plays Vicky, a woman from Lana's world. Vicky is not the center of the story, but she helps widen the life Joel is being pulled into. When Lana invites Vicky to the Goodson house, that house moves even farther away from the clean family image Joel is trying to protect. Shara's career was mostly in television. She appeared in Heart 2, Heart Starsky, and Hutch Kojak Charlie's Angels Baby Boom, John Q Alpha Dog Cold Case, and especially Columbo. For anyone who grew up with American television, Shara Denise was not just Vicky in a Tom Cruise movie, she was also a familiar face in Peter Falk's world. In 1977, Shara married Peter Falk, the star of Columbo, after he divorced his first wife, Alice Mayo. That marriage lasted until Falk died in 2011, but it was not a spotless fairy tale. The two of them filed for divorce twice, then reconciled. The heaviest part came in Falk's final years. In 2008, his daughter Catherine Falk filed papers in a Los Angeles court saying her father had Alzheimer's and asking to become his conservator. Catherine accused Shara of blocking her and others from visiting Peter. Shara's side told the court that she had cared for her husband properly as his caregiver, with nurses filling in when she was away, and that Falk's relationship with his daughter had already been strained before that. After Peter Falk died at 83, his daughter said they found out through the media and were not informed when he was buried. That story later led to efforts to push bills about visitation rights for elderly people, often called Peter Falk's Law. It was not just the story of a famous family. It was a very real question about dementia guardianship and who gets to be with someone when they are at their weakest. Number 10, Kevin C. Anderson as Chuck. We close the list with Kevin C. Anderson, who only had a small role in Risky Business then in real life. Nearly lost everything after being hit by a car in 1994. Kevin Anderson was born in 1960 in Gurnee, Illinois. When Risky Business came out in 1983, he was 23 years old. This year, he is 66. In the movie, he plays Chuck, one of Joel Goodson's friends. A small role, to be honest, but Anderson was not a stranger to the suburban world of the movie. He grew up in Gurnee, about 20 miles from the movie's setting, and in high school he once worked as Bugs Bunny along with other Warner Brothers characters at Great America. He was also once brought to Los Angeles with Megan Mullally to screen test for the lead roles, but in the end, he was not chosen as a lead. After Risky Business, Anderson did not become a mainstream star, but he had real craft. He was part of the Steppenwolf Theater Company, stood out in The Play Orphans, then took it to New York London's West End, and the film version with Albert Finney. On screen, he had Sleeping with the Enemy in Country Miles from Home Hoffa, Rising Sun, A Thousand Acres, Eye of God, and Charlotte's Web. In 1998, he was nominated for a Golden Globe for playing Father Ray in the series Nothing Sacred. The big turn came after Sunset Boulevard. In 1993, Anderson played Joe Gillis opposite Patti LuPone in the London version and earned a lot of praise. But when the production got caught up in the mess around Glenn Close being brought into the New York version instead of LuPone, Anderson said he was stuck in the middle. He felt that his agent, manager, and lawyer, the people paid to stand beside him, were not there when he needed them. He fired everyone, got on his motorcycle, and planned to run away from showbiz for about a year. 2 months later, on October 6, 1994, An Oldsmobile hit him. Anderson nearly lost his right arm, broke his leg in 3 places, suffered internal injuries, had complications from a fat embolism, and went through a long, painful recovery. He said it plainly, "I nearly died." After the accident, he had to rebuild his body, his trust, and his career. He returned with Nothing Sacred, then kept going on stage with Death of a Salesman on Broadway, where he was nominated for a Tony comeback, Little Sheba, The Shawshank Redemption in the West End, and many plays at Steppenwolf. Before closing this list, I want to take you back to the set one last time. Because after all the lives we have just gone through, there are a few small details from Risky Business that make me understand why this movie is still alive in the memory of American men after more than 40 years. The interesting thing is that Kevin Anderson is not just the last name on the list. He is also the person who saw very early the thing the whole world would later call Tom Cruise discipline. The shooting schedule started at 6 in the morning, but Tom had already been running for 1 to 2 hours before that. Kevin summed it up in one clean sentence: the guy was a machine. Hearing that now, it almost sounds like a prophecy. Before the planes, motorcycles, cliffs, and stunts that make people hold their breath, there was already a 21-year-old guy getting up earlier than the whole film crew to sharpen himself into steel. Then there is the party scene. I think this is why so many people still remember Risky Business as a feeling, not just as a plot. That scene does not look like a party neatly boxed in for the camera. It has loud music, a crowd, the humid Chicago heat, Steadicam moving through bodies, and a group of actors not just standing there pretending to have fun. They blend into each other as if the Goodson house really has lost control. And this final bit is a perfect way to close. In the movie's group of call girls, there is one face you might miss if you blink: Megan Mullally. Yes, that Megan Mullally, the woman who later became Karen Walker in Will and Grace. The interesting thing is that someone on set already felt she had star quality, even back then. I like details like that, because it makes Risky Business feel like a strange Hollywood yearbook. You open it because of Tom Cruise, but the closer you look, the more you see small faces that later went on to have lives of their own. After these 10 faces, Risky Business is no longer just a then and now video. It is 10 lives stepping out of the same movie. One became a legend, one fought depression, one lost homes, one passed away, one was in an accident that almost ended everything and still found a way to stand back up. And maybe that is why this movie is still alive. Not just because of the plot, but because a few images stuck hard to pop culture: the white shirt, the sunglasses, the white socks, the slide across the floor. Someone once told me that when they were little, they saw that kind of image being parodied everywhere in movies, on television, even in roller skating scenes. When a movie scene gets copied that much, it has moved beyond the movie. What about you? Where did you first watch the movie? And which face surprised you the most today? Leave your memory below. Every comment is one way to help the movie live a little longer. And do not forget to subscribe to Weird Movie Secrets, because old Hollywood still has a lot of doors worth opening again.